now this is one of those things where sometimes people will respond to the church and say, wait, I thought you were pro-life. How can you be against in vitro fertilization? I thought you were all for babies. How can you be against in vitro fertilization? Well, because of the nature of the action. So in vitro fertilization is when human life is created in a tube or in a petri dish and then implanted in the woman instead of through the act of husband and wife. And we believe that's immoral for many reasons. One is because it's every child, the church teaches every child deserves to be created as a fruit of a loving gift of self between husband and wife, rather than an act of science. Every child deserves to be it should be created as an act of expression of the marriage vows, rather than an act of science. And so it separates the act of conception from the parents and places it in the hands of someone who's not the parent. And that's wrong. It's immoral. It goes against our nature. There are many other reasons. One is because, I mentioned this in a couple of the homilies, is that for every one child that's born of in vitro fertilization, actually 30 children are created. 30 embryos are created. Many of them are implanted in the woman, and they see which one's going to take, and then they do a selective reduction, which means abortion. They just kill the rest. Or they freeze a bunch of embryos, and then you've got the real problem of frozen embryos. What do you do there? And the church is really trying to still, the church hasn't taken a definitive stance on what we do with all these frozen embryos, these millions of frozen embryos in our world. Because we don't believe in surrogate motherhood. It's for the same principle that every child deserves to be an act of love between a husband and wife, not an act of science. You shouldn't be the mother of some other person's child. It goes against the nature of things. So that's where some of the people ask, well, is it possible what's the solution for all these frozen embryos? Well, I mean, of course, it's once these embryos are created, then the parents should have those children. That'd be a moral, I think that's a moral solution once you've already done the action to put the embryos back where they're supposed to be. But is it possible to adopt? I don't know. I don't think so. The church hasn't taken a definitive dogmatic stance, but I think most moral theologians would say that it's surrogate motherhood. You can't adopt someone else's embryos for the same principle. But other issues there is it's not good science either. It's a good business, but not good science. The going rate right now, the average cost of in vitro fertilization is $12,400, and the success rate is about 20%. So most times the couples have to have it many times, which is why it's a lucrative business. Whereas there's actually treatments for most causes of infertility. Most things that women face, there's actually cures for, but most doctors don't even know about these cures because they've been taught the pill for any woman's issue and in vitro fertilization for any infertility issue. Well, and so they've even been trained about natural family planning. They've even been trained about fertility care. They've been trained about fertility destruction. And they've been trained about how to actually heal a woman's body because this is the lucrative business out there. So the Pope Paul VI Institute, for example, an institute that actually has real treatments and real cures for many causes of infertility. They actually do surgeries that aren't done in the regular hospitals to actually cure the underlying causes of infertility so parents can have as many kids as they want. It costs much less. They have an 80% success rate, versus the 20% success rate of IVF.